Honda is synonymous with reliability. We know it. It is the brand you trust to go to work every day, to travel around the world, or to lend your bike to your son without fear of it leaving him stranded. But even giants stumble in their search for perfection. Honda has built machines that were simply impossible to enjoy, and others that literally self-destructed. Today we are going to reveal the 7 embarrassments of the Golden Wing brand and the 8 legends that changed history forever, from the bike that looked like a household appliance to the one that killed the British industry. We begin with the ones you should avoid. Number 7. Honda PC 800 Pacific Coast. The year was 1989, and Honda, in a strange burst of creativity, decided to build a motorcycle for people who, in reality, didn't want a motorcycle. The PC 800 Pacific Coast wasn't a dangerous bike. It didn't kill anyone, but it committed a much more unpardonable crime, a crime against passion. Imagine taking a perfectly decent V-twin engine from the Shadow Range, a reliable motor with heritage and that touch of character cruiser lovers adore, and burying it under 300 kilograms of plastic. That is the Pacific Coast. It looked like a Honda Accord that had melted in the sun. You couldn't see the engine, you couldn't see the chassis, you couldn't see anything mechanical at all. It was the household appliance of the motorcycling world. The entire rear section was an immense trunk that opened like a car hatch. Practical, yes, but it gave the bike a rear end so wide it needed its own zip code. Honda marketed it as the perfect commuter vehicle, the machine you could ride in a suit without getting greasy. And that was probably true, but riding it felt exactly as it looked. Lazy, soft, and completely devoid of sensation. The engine sound, muffled by so much plastic, resembled a vacuum cleaner. It was the beige cardigan of motorcycling. As a machine meant to thrill, it is a plastic coffin for your soul. It represents that era when Honda thought they could sterilize the riding experience, eliminating all the rawness and noise that make riding fun. They were wrong. Number 6. Honda CX500 Turbo. In the early 80s, everyone was crazy about turbos. Manufacturers were slapping turbochargers on everything from utility cars to toasters. It was the era of excess, and Honda, being Honda, decided they were going to do it better than anyone else. They took their CX500, a reliable if somewhat ugly bike affectionately known as the Plastic Maggot due to its pushrod V-twin engine originally designed for couriers, and bolted on a massive turbo. In theory, it was a brilliant idea. It promised the fuel consumption of a 500 with the power of a 1000. In practice, it was terrifying. The problem was the lag. You would open the throttle at 3,000 revolutions and nothing happened. You waited a bit more, checked your watch, the bike felt sluggish, heavy, unresponsive, and then bam! At 5,000 revolutions, the turbo woke up and hit you like a sledgehammer. The turbo needle would shoot up like a rocket and the front wheel would go light until it lost contact with the ground. Imagine trying to exit a wet roundabout. You open the gas a little, nothing happens. You open it a bit more so you don't stall. Suddenly the rear wheel spins, the bike kicks out, and you're staring at the asphalt wondering what went wrong. It was unpredictable, it was incredibly complex, featuring sensors, injectors, and wiring that looked like the back of a washing machine. Repairing it was a nightmare. When it worked well on a long, straight highway, it was a blast. When it didn't, it was a heavy, slow, and expensive paperweight. Honda proved they could do it, but they never stopped to ask if they should. It remains a warning about what happens when you chase trends without refining the user experience. Number 5. Honda NM4 Vultus. Fast forward to 2014. Honda engineers, it seems, spent a weekend watching Batman movies and the anime Akira and decided to build this. The NM4 Vultus is without a doubt the strangest mass-produced motorcycle Honda has ever released. It was a brave attempt to capture a new audience, but they missed the mark by such a wide margin that we are still wondering what they were smoking in the design room. Is it a cruiser? Is it a scooter? Is it a prop from a B-series science fiction movie? No one knows. It had the riding position of a chopper with feet far forward, it had the flat floorboards of a touring bike, and it had bodywork that looked like a stealth bomber designed by a 5-year-old. The seat was incredibly low, which was great for shorter riders, but the handlebars were strangely flat and too far away. It forced you into a clam posture that became uncomfortable after 20 minutes. But the deadly sin was the engine. Based on its looks, it should have carried a laser cannon or a jet turbine. It looked fast even while standing still. Instead, it carried the parallel twin engine from the NC 750, a motor famous for having the personality of a dishwasher. It hit the rev limiter at 6,000 revolutions. It sounded like a lawnmower. It featured the dual clutch transmission, DCT, that shifted for itself, eliminating the last shred of connection with the rider. It was a bike for a lifestyle that didn't exist, and it cost $11,000. For that money, you could buy a real motorcycle. Instead, you bought a plastic bat that everyone, including scooter riders, laughed at. It sat in dealerships gathering dust for years, a monument to what happens when design triumphs over function. Number 4. Honda CB360T. We return to the 70s to find a bike that broke hearts. The Honda CB350 was a legend, reliable, fun, and sold by the millions. It defined an entire generation of motorcyclists. Its successor, the CB360, was supposed to be better. It wasn't. The CB360 is proof that new isn't always improved. Honda rushed it to market to compete with Kawasaki's two-strokes, cramming in a new 6-speed gearbox that was poorly designed. The engine was always stressed, and to make matters worse, it was unreliable. Right out of the gate, they had to issue a recall for the cam chain tensioner, something unheard of for Honda at the time. That tensioner would fail and the engine would eat itself. But the absolute worst part was the vibration. At highway speeds, the CB360 vibrated with such violence that parts literally fell off. Mirrors would loosen and fly away. License plates would snap due to metal fatigue. Your hands would go numb in 10 minutes. I knew a guy who used one to go to university and had to carry a wrench in his pocket to tighten the bolts every time he parked. It handled worse than the bike it replaced, felt cheaper, and was much harsher. It is the forgotten child of the CB family, a motorcycle that took a step backward in every aspect. If you find one today, leave it in the barn. It isn't the vintage gem you're looking for. Number 3. Honda DN01. In 2008, Honda lost its mind. It launched the DN01. They called it a sport cruiser. The press called it the do not own one. It was Honda attempting to invent a new motorcycle category and failing miserably. Look at it. It looks like a shark that had a trash compactor fall on it. It is long, low, and Byzantine, but the real crime was the transmission. Honda spent millions developing the HFT, the human-friendly transmission. It was a hydromechanical, continuously variable transmission, a marvel of engineering to be fair, but it was heavy, complex, and absorbed a massive amount of power. The engine was the weak 680 cubic centimeter V-twin from the Transalp. By the time the power reached the rear wheel through that heavy gearbox, you were left with about 40 horsepower. To move 270 kilograms of plastic and electronics, it was incredibly slow. It had no wind protection because the screen was low and sat too far back. It had no cargo capacity because the rear design prioritized aesthetics over function, and the price, $15,500. $15,000. For that money, you could buy a Hayabusa and a dirt bike. You could buy a luxury car. Honda sold 4. It is a monument to engineering arrogance, the solution to a problem nobody had. The bike that answered the question nobody asked, what if we make a scooter that costs as much as a Ducati? Number 2. Honda VF 750F Interceptor/Sabre/Magna, first generation. And we come to the bike that almost destroyed Honda's reputation forever. The year is 1982. Honda launches its V4 revolution, the VF 750 in its Sabre, Magna, and especially the sporty Interceptor versions were high-tech machines, liquid-cooled V4s that promised to crush the competition. They were faster, smoother, and more advanced than anything Suzuki or Kawasaki had, but they had a problem, a massive and catastrophic problem hidden deep within the cylinder heads. Honda miscalculated the oil flow to the camshafts. Furthermore, to save money and weight, they machined the cam journals directly into the aluminum head without using separate bearings. The result was that the camshafts were spinning dry. They would overheat and literally self-destruct. Mechanics called them chocolate camshafts because it looked like they melted after just a few thousand kilometers. Owners would hear a ticking, then a rattling, and then silence. Engines were failing everywhere. People were left stranded on the side of the road. The VF 750 of the early 80s is, without a doubt, the greatest engineering failure in the company's history. A beautiful disaster that proved even Honda can bleed. Number 1. Honda CTX 1300, CTX 700. And here is number 1 of the ones you should avoid. It is not the ugliest, nor the one with the most mechanical failures, nor the worst in figures. It is the worst for a much deeper reason. It is the ultimate betrayal of the Honda spirit. The CTX 700 and its big sister, the CTX 1300, are bikes that were born dead. They were born without a soul. Honda tried to create a comfortable, low, accessible cruiser with a relaxed posture and a reliable engine. And they succeeded. Technically, they are correct motorcycles. The 700 carries the parallel twin from the NC 700, that engine that feels like a tractor and sips fuel like a scooter. The 1300 carries a V4 of the kind Honda knows how to make. Smooth and powerful. But when you sit on a CTX, you realize what is missing. There is no character. There are no emotions. There is nothing that makes you want to go out for a ride without a specific destination. It is the bike for those who want a motorcycle but don't actually want a motorcycle. It is for those who don't care what they have between their legs. The posture is strange, with feet far forward but the handlebars too close, as if they couldn't decide between a custom and a naked. The fairing protects from the wind, yes, but it isolates you from everything else. The CTX is a bike for going from point A to point B without noticing anything, without feeling anything. It is the final victory of function over passion. It is the ultimate household appliance, and for that reason, it is number one on the list of those you should avoid. Because a bike that doesn't make you feel anything isn't a motorcycle, it's just a vehicle. These 7 bikes prove that even Honda makes mistakes, but now it's time to clear the brand's name. We're going to wipe the oil off the asphalt and enter the Hall of Fame. These are the 8 machines that define generations, the ones that are bulletproof, fast, and perfect. Get ready for what's coming. Number 8. Honda CR500. Most Hondas are friendly, predictable, and easy to love. Not this one. This one wants to kill you. The Honda CR500 is the undisputed king of open-class displacement in the two-stroke world. Produced from 1984 to 2001, this dirt bike was the very definition of excess. A 500 cubic centimeter single-cylinder two-stroke engine that spat out nearly 60 horsepower in a chassis that weighed less than your lunch. It had no traction control, no electronic aids, no ABS. It had a throttle that acted like a light switch. You hit the power band and the front wheel rose toward the sky without hesitation. It was violent, visceral, and demanded absolute respect. I've seen experienced riders get on a CR500 and come back with shaking hands and a grin from ear to ear mixed with terror. In the desert, on the dunes, on the motocross tracks, the CR500 was queen. Famously reliable for a two-stroke, it was capable of running races like the Baja 1000 without breaking a sweat, provided the rider could handle the pull. It is a machine of raw power, a purest and terrifying experience that proves Honda also knows how to build untamed beasts. If you ever have the chance to try one, do it, but be prepared to fight for your life. Number 7. Honda RC51 RVT 1000R. At the end of the 90s, Ducati was winning everything. Their V-twins dominated the Superbike World Championship with crushing authority. Honda, with its V4 RC45, could not keep up the pace, and then Honda got angry. They didn't just get a little angry, they got very angry. They decided that if they couldn't beat Ducati with their own engine, they would beat them with Ducati's engine style. They built the RC51, a 1,000 cubic centimeter V-twin designed specifically to kill the Ducati. And it worked. It was brutal, it was reliable, and it was built with typical Honda perfection. In the SP1 version, it featured gear-driven cams, a mechanical rarity that ensured millimetric precision. The chassis was so rigid it felt like a block of granite. The twin side-mounted radiators gave it a wide and aggressive look. And then came Colin Edwards. The Texan took the RC51 and destroyed Ducati at their own game, winning 2 world championships. I remember watching the races from home. The sound of that Honda V-twin roaring out of the corners was the sound of war. On the street, the RC51 was a cult legend. It sounded like thunder, handled like a race bike, and unlike the Ducatis of the era, it started every morning without protest and left no oil puddles in the garage. It is the definitive proof that Honda can build anything better than you. Number 6. Honda Valkyrie F6C. In the 90s, the cruiser market was boring. Everyone was copying Harley-Davidson. Everyone wanted to sound like an American V-twin. Honda looked at its Goldwing and said, "What if we strip it down and make it mean?" Thus was born the Valkyrie, a muscle cruiser powered by the 6-cylinder boxer engine from the Goldwing. 6 cylinders, 6 carburetors, a racing engine look with handlebars, 100 horsepower, and beastly torque. It is physically imposing, wide, and heavy, but it moves with a grace that defies physics. The magic of the Valkyrie is how it rides. That 6-cylinder engine is smoother than a Rolls-Royce. You can balance a coin on its edge on the tank while revving and it won't fall. It accelerates with a turbine hiss that puts any Harley to shame. And maneuverable. For such a large bike, it is surprisingly agile because the weight is carried very low. I remember seeing a guy on a Valkyrie chasing sport bikes through a mountain pass, dragging foot pegs and throwing sparks with a giant smile on his face. It is totally unique, totally over the top, and totally Honda. It is the bike that says, we don't need to copy anyone, we have 6 cylinders. Number 5. Honda RC30 VFR 750R. If you are a collector, this is the holy grail. The RC30, also known as the VFR 750R, is undoubtedly the most desirable Japanese motorcycle ever built. It is the bike every Honda engineer dreams of. Built in 1987 for homologation so it could compete in the Superbike World Championship, it was a handmade work of art. It cost twice as much as a normal sport bike. It carried a V4 engine with a 360-degree crankshaft and gear-driven cams. Listen to an RC30. It doesn't sound like a motorcycle. It sounds like a possessed sewing machine. It sounds like victory. It had a single-sided swing arm designed for quick wheel changes in endurance races. It featured titanium connecting rods. It had a slipper clutch that wouldn't reach street bikes for another 15 years. It won the first 2 Superbike World Championships. It is beautiful. The 2 round headlights, the HRC colors, the white wheels. It represents the pinnacle of Honda's engineering philosophy where cost was not an obstacle. Riding one today is like wearing a Swiss watch. It is precise, tight, and absolutely perfect. It is a piece of history you can ride. Number 4. Honda Goldwing, any generation since 2001. This is a touring bike that handled like a sport bike, and that is not an exaggeration. The aluminum chassis of modern Goldwings is rigid and the 6-cylinder boxer engine sits so low that the bike dives into corners with disconcerting agility. You can scrape the floorboards while listening to the radio and sipping a coffee. It redefined what a heavy motorcycle could do. It proved you didn't have to sacrifice handling for comfort. It is the benchmark for reliability. There are Goldwings with 600,000 kilometers that have never had the engine opened. It created an entire culture of long-distance travel. It features reverse gear, an airbag, heated seats, and enough cargo capacity for a 2-week vacation. It is the ultimate expression of Honda's promise. It will take you anywhere in total comfort and will never ever leave you stranded. I knew a couple who had visited every state in the United States on their Goldwing. They arrived fresh, happy, and ready for another lap. That is the power of this machine. Number 3. Honda Super Cub. This bike is not fast, it is not sexy, but it is the most important vehicle in human history. It is the bike that built Honda. The Honda Super Cub has sold more than 100 million units. Think about that figure. That is more than the Toyota Corolla, more than the Volkswagen Beetle. It is the machine that mobilized the world. It put Asia on wheels. It put Europe on wheels. Launched in 1958, it had an underbone frame so you could ride it in a skirt or a suit. It had a centrifugal clutch so you didn't have to learn how to use a lever. It was quiet, clean, and didn't leak oil. It was the nice person's bike, the one that changed the motorcyclist image from outlaw to neighbor, and besides, it is indestructible. You can throw it down a ravine, you can pour potato frying oil into it, you can shoot it, and it will still start on the first kick. I've seen videos where they drained the oil, replaced it with cooking grease, and the bike kept running for hours. It opened the world of motorcycling to the masses. Without the Super Cub, the Honda we know would not exist. It is the humble giant upon which the entire industry stands. Number 2. Honda CBR 900R Fireblade, first generation. The year is 1992. Sport bikes were fast, but they were fat. They were missiles, but they didn't turn. They were physically exhausting if you wanted to go fast. Then came the Fireblade. Tadao Baba, the project leader, had a radical idea. Light is right. He didn't chase power figures, he chased weight. He built a bike with the power of a 1000 and the weight of a 600. It weighed only 184 kilograms dry. It changed everything. Overnight, it made the rest of the sport bikes look like dinosaurs. It entered corners with terrifying speed. It accelerated as if shot from a cannon because it had no mass holding it back. It featured those famous Swiss cheese holes in the fairing to save grams. It used a controversial but effective 16-inch front wheel to make the steering even faster. I remember the first time I saw one with the Urban Tiger paint scheme. It looked dangerous. It looked like the future. The Fireblade didn't just win comparisons, it invented the modern superbike. Every Yamaha R1, every Suzuki GSX-R, every Kawasaki ZX-10R exists because they had to chase the Fireblade. It is the blueprint for the modern sport bike. It proved that handling was just as important as power. Number 1. Honda CB 754. There can only be one king, the motorcycle responsible for the term superbike, the Honda CB 750. Before 1969, if you wanted a fast bike, you bought a British one that leaked oil and vibrated your fillings loose, or an Italian one that never started. Japanese bikes were seen as small, cheap machines for running errands. They were toys. Then Honda dropped the bomb. The CB 750 had 4 cylinders, it had 4 exhausts, it had an electric starter, something purists despised until they realized how nice it was not to have to kickstart in the rain. It had a disc brake, it was smooth, it didn't leak oil, it ran at 200 kilometers per hour, and it cost a fraction of what a Harley or a Triumph cost. It practically killed the British motorcycle industry single-handedly. It forced the world to wake up. It proved that a high-performance bike could also be reliable. You could cross the country on it and it wouldn't break. It is the Genesis, the Alpha, and the Omega. Every inline-4 motorcycle on the road today carries its DNA directly. It is the best Honda ever built because it is the bike that conquered the world. It changed the perception of what a motorcycle could be and set the standard that everyone else is still trying to reach today. 15 motorcycles that demonstrate the two sides of Honda. On one hand, strange experiments, soulless bikes, and youthful mistakes. On the other, legends that changed the course of history on 2 wheels, from the CB 750 that started it all to the Fireblade that redefined sport bikes, along with the indestructible Super Cub and the luxurious Goldwing. Honda is, above all, the brand that has done the most to popularize motorcycling in the world. And although they have a few skeletons in the closet, their successes weigh much more than their errors. Tell us, which of these Hondas have you owned? Any of the cursed ones or the blessed ones? Have you suffered with one of the chocolate VF 750 models or enjoyed a Fireblade? And if you want to keep discovering the best kept secrets of 2 wheels, subscribe, because the road always continues.